This story happened to us in the early 2000s, and if you're wondering who "us" refers to, it's me and my friend Jay. We lived in a small town in Canada, and since there wasn't a nearby gym, Jay and I used to go to one that was a bit far away. One day, after finishing our workout, Jay suggested we take the back roads to return, which were narrow, sloping paths behind a mountain. I agreed, and as we continued on the road, the snow started piling up more and more, and the trees along the sides of the road became denser. We kept going until the sun was about to set, and the road was almost blocked by snow. We decided to turn back in the car, but before we could, we heard a loud noise, and the car fell into a ditch. We quickly got out to see if we could lift the car and get it out, but unfortunately, I had forgotten to bring a shovel. I decided to leave Jay in the car and run back to town to get help. But after a few minutes of running, I realized the snow was deep, and if something happened to me here, it would take a long time for anyone to reach me. I went back to Jay, and by then, the sun had fully set, and darkness and fog had taken over. After about 20 minutes of waiting, we saw the light of a car approaching from a distance. A man got out and walked towards us, knocking quietly on the car window. I rolled it down slightly, and he asked if we were in need of help or if we were just there by choice. I explained the situation, and he offered to help. He went back to his car and returned with a rusty saw, and began cutting branches off the trees. We were confused, so I asked him why he was doing that, and he said the branches would help lift the car out of the ditch. Sure enough, we managed to get the car out, and he told us he lived in a nearby cabin at the top of the mountain. Before I could thank him, he disappeared into the fog. A few weeks later, while I was at home, I saw the same man on the news. The reporter said he was accused of killing 6 women after luring them to his cabin, torturing them in brutal ways, and then killing them with a saw. It was the same saw he had used to cut the branches for us, and at that moment, I realized the saw wasn't rusty, it was covered in blood. I live in a boring city where the sounds of cars and people never stop all day long. I decided to take a vacation in a quiet, faraway town. I booked a small house that fit my budget, packed my things, and the next day, I began the journey, which took 10 hours of continuous driving. I arrived in the town at night, but I didn't feel comfortable. The town felt like a ghost town, with small houses far apart from each other and dim, old streetlights. With some difficulty, I found the house I had rented. I parked my car, got out, and opened the house. It was small inside, but nicely arranged. Before I could unpack, I heard a car approaching from afar. I went to the window and looked out. The car had stopped between my house and the neighboring one, but strangely, no one got out. I didn't think much of it and went into the kitchen to get a drink, then started replying to messages on my phone. Suddenly, I heard the car door open and footsteps walking along the road. I figured the people must be going into the house next door. I was very tired, so I prepared the bedroom and decided to sleep. In the middle of my sleep, I felt a strange sensation. I opened my eyes with difficulty and saw eyes staring at me through the window. There was a man standing there, watching me. I quickly got up, dressed, and called the police, who were about 20 minutes away. Before I could leave the room, I heard footsteps outside the door. I moved closer and heard the sound fading away, followed by the sound of the car driving off into the distance. After a while, I came out of the room, only to find that the front door of the house was open. I ran to the door and closed it, staying awake all night, waiting for the police, who unfortunately never arrived. At that moment, I decided to leave immediately. I packed my things, got into the car, and drove off quickly. To this day, I have no idea who those people were, what they wanted from me, or what they were planning to do. My owns a cabin in the woods, and we go there every summer to enjoy nature away from the noise of the city. One year, I decided to take my girlfriend along with my family. To reach the cabin, we had to pass through 5 large gates, each belonging to different landowners. Each had built a gate and a fence separating their land from the others, and a dirt road connected these gates to our cabin. We reached the cabin and had a wonderful vacation. We went hunting and enjoyed watching nature and the wildlife. On the last day, my family decided to leave early, but I stayed until the end of the day with my fiancée. As the sun set, we packed our things, locked up the cabin, and got in the car to leave. The sun had already set and darkness had fallen, so I decided to drive slowly to avoid any surprises. We reached the first gate, I got out, opened it, and after we passed through, I closed it behind us. Everything was normal until we reached the fourth gate. I got out and opened it, and after we passed, I got out again to close it. But before I could do that, I noticed a light in the distance, like the beam of a flashlight. I stood still for a few seconds, but nothing changed, the light remained in the same place. I assumed it was one of the landowners, so I decided to ignore it. But just before closing the gate, I heard someone shouting for help. I approached the light, calling out, "Who's there?" That's when I saw a strange man dressed in black with a backpack running toward me. I asked him if he needed help, but he kept running straight at me. I quickly closed the gate, ran to the car, and started driving at a moderate speed. I lied to my fiancée when she asked me what was wrong, telling her nothing, thinking I had imagined the voice. When we got to the fifth gate, I hesitated before getting out, but I opened it and we passed through. As I went to close it, I saw the same man running towards the car. I jumped back into the car, leaving the gate open. My fiancée asked, "Who is that?" Maybe he needs help, but I told her he had been chasing us since the fourth gate. She started to get scared, and I kept driving as we watched him running after us until he gradually disappeared in the rearview mirror. We reached the main road and then home. I called my family and asked if they had seen anyone there at night, but they denied seeing anyone matching that description. I'm just glad I managed to get away, and I don't care to know what he wanted from us.